This was, I would say, a classic trip to Egypt. Egypt really gave me an appreciation for just how ancient and absolutely brilliant the architecture and the art is there. The pyramids are huge. You stand next to them and you feel so small and just in awe of this last remaining wonder of the ancient world that is still here. We started our Nile cruise in Luxor. The Nile, still to this day, is the most important artery in Egypt. It is what gives Egypt life. You can see almost all of its main sites just by sticking to the banks of the Nile. Once you get to larger places, the boat docked and you could get off the boat and see the temples there, which were absolutely glorious, and probably the easiest way to see the temples was by going down on a cruise boat. The first temple that we went to was Karnak. It is one of the biggest in Egypt. Inside is just this forest of columns that are towering above your head. The Luxor Temple is really fascinating because there's evidence of 3 different religions in it. So of course there's the ancient Egyptian religions where they worship the Egyptian gods, but there's also a mosque built into the side of it. There's also evidence of Christianity in that temple because in the back there are scratched off hieroglyphs that show the apostles and that show Jesus. Getting to Edfu was really interesting. We took a horse-drawn carriage to get to Edfu, which is kind of the traditional way to get there from the banks of the River Nile. What I really loved about Edfu is that it was one of the temples that you could really get lost in, where some of the other ones, it's kind of just a square or rectangular shape. There are kind of corridors and passageways where you could get lost, and some come to a dead end, and some of them connect, and you're not 100% sure where you're going to end up. It's one of the few places where you can feel like maybe you are one of the explorers back in Victorian times. My absolute favorite thing that I did on the trip was take a hot air balloon from Luxor, and what you do is fly up above the tombs and temples, and it's absolutely beautiful, and you can see just how important the Nile is to this area from that, because it's such a huge contrast between the lush green banks with the ancient tombs carved out into the stones of the desert just beyond. It is essential that you find a balloon operator that has a good safety record and that comes with the solid advice of your tour guide, as there have been some accidents in recent years. Egypt has made such a contribution to art in the Western world and culture the world over. Some of the most beautiful examples of what life was like are still on display in Egypt today. Tourism is down, though there are lots of signs that it's picking back up. Right now is really the perfect time to go to Egypt, as it's just starting to wake up again and people are finally starting to go back.